What happens when a high-profile client dismisses his lawyer based on prejudice, only to watch her triumph in the courtroom from the sidelines? In the heart of downtown Chicago, amidst the relentless hum of city life, the law firm of Harrison and Tate stood as a beacon of legal prowess and professionalism. Within its glass walls, Vanessa Edwards, a poised and talented black attorney, navigated the complexities of corporate law with a calmness that belied the intensity of her cases. Known for her methodical approach and sharp intellect, Vanessa had become a key figure in the firm, her recent promotion a testament to her success in several high-stakes litigations. Today, the office buzzed with the usual mix of urgency and structured chaos, but there was an added current of anticipation. News had spread of a major new client, Mr. Theodore Carlson, a man whose vast wealth and influence were eclipsed only by the gravity of the lawsuit he faced. Accused of severe corporate malfeasance, Carlson needed the best to navigate the storm ahead, and Harrison and Tate had been his first choice. However, as the elevator doors opened to admit Mr. Carlson into the firm's plush reception area, there was more on his mind than just legal strategies. Despite his desperate circumstances, Carlson's worldview was tinted with prejudices that ran deep, his belief in stereotypes unshaken by the cosmopolitan sheen of his lifestyle. To him, attorneys were supposed to fit a certain mold, one which Vanessa did not match. When introduced to Vanessa, who stood confidently among her colleagues, Mr. Carlson's initial expression flickered briefly with surprise, quickly masked by a practiced smile. Despite her impressive credentials and the glowing recommendations that preceded her, Carlson could not conceal his hesitation. An unspoken doubt kindled purely by her appearance and not her capability. As handshakes were exchanged and pleasantries shared, Vanessa read the subtle cues of Carlson's demeanor. She was no stranger to such reactions, yet she greeted him with unwavering professionalism, ready to prove that her skill was measured by her achievements, not preconceptions. Little did Mr. Carlson realize the partnership he was about to enter would challenge and possibly change his views fundamentally. The mahogany conference room of Harrison and Tate was charged with a mix of anticipation and tension as Vanessa Edwards prepared to dive deep into Mr. Carlson's legal complications. Her colleagues had left her to lead the discussion, knowing her track record with high-stakes corporate cases positioned her perfectly for the challenge. The room, lined with legal tomes and past victories framed on the walls, was a testament to the firm's prowess and Vanessa's contributions to its reputation. Mr. Theodore Carlson, dressed in an immaculate suit that spoke of wealth and a meticulous nature, sat across from Vanessa, his posture rigid and his expression unreadable. Beside him lay a stack of documents and digital devices that buzzed intermittently, drawing brief glances of irritation from him. As Vanessa outlined her initial thoughts on his case strategy, she noticed his discomfort, which seemed to grow not from the details of the legal approach, but from his scrutiny of her. When Vanessa paused to gauge his feedback on her proposed legal tactics, Mr. Carlson leaned forward, clearing his throat. "Ms. Edwards, your credentials are impressive," he started, his tone polite but cool. "However, I must confess, I have reservations about your ability to handle a case of this magnitude and visibility." Vanessa, accustomed to such undercurrents of doubt, maintained her composure. "Mr. Carlson, I assure you that my experience aligns perfectly with the needs of your case. My track record in this firm speaks to my capabilities." Carlson nodded slowly, his fingers tapping on the table. "Indeed, no doubt you are competent. But I wonder if you understand the nuances of my industry and the circles in which we operate. This case isn't just about legal prowess. It's also about perception, connections. I presume someone different might be a better fit." The implication hung heavily in the air, and Vanessa felt a familiar pinch of frustration at the prejudiced undertone. She recognized the challenge not just as a professional, but as a black woman continually proving her worth in spaces that doubted her before she even spoke. "I appreciate your concerns," Vanessa responded, her voice steady. "But let me assure you, the firm has assigned me to your case because I am the best fit, both in skill and experience. If it's connections you're concerned about, you'll find I am quite capable of navigating those waters as well." Mr. Carlson pursed his lips, considering her words. After a moment, he sighed. "Ms. Edwards, perhaps someone with a different background would be more appropriate. Someone who fits the usual profile we're accustomed to for such a high-profile engagement. Vanessa knew exactly what he meant. Despite the progressive facade of many in the corporate realm, old biases held firm. She had faced this subtle discrimination numerous times, though it stung afresh with each encounter. If you are asking if there are other attorneys who could handle your case, the answer is yes. This firm is full of talented individuals, Vanessa said, her tone firm but diplomatic. However, you'd be hard-pressed to find someone with a more tailored fit for your needs than me. Carlson's gaze held hers for a long moment, his internal conflict apparent. Finally, he nodded curtly. I would like to request a different attorney, Ms. Edwards. Please understand, this is a business decision, not a personal one. As Vanessa left the meeting to inform her superiors of Mr. Carlson's request, her resolve solidified. She would not contest his decision, she would respect it. But she knew this incident was a stark reminder of the broader battles she and many others still faced. Battles not just in courtrooms, but within the very structures that were supposed to champion justice and equality. Vanessa Edwards couldn't let herself linger on the rejection. Instead of succumbing to the sting of Mr. Carlson's blatant disregard, she channeled her hurt into a relentless focus on the case. She may not have been given the chance to lead it directly, but she would not be left on the sidelines. As the weeks passed, her determination grew stronger. She had already proven her capabilities to her colleagues and the firm. Now she would prove it to Mr. Carlson, even if he didn't realize it yet. Despite being sidelined as lead counsel, Vanessa remained integrally involved in every aspect of the case. The firm had assigned Thomas Beck, a less experienced but eager young attorney, to manage Mr. Carlson's legal proceedings. Thomas, though technically competent, lacked the depth of understanding that Vanessa brought to the table, especially when it came to navigating complex corporate litigation. Vanessa's role was shifted to that of a strategic advisor, still central to the case's success but working behind the scenes. Thomas was eager but inexperienced, a stark contrast to Vanessa's calm expertise. His naivety in the courtroom was palpable. During the early pretrial hearings, he fumbled through motions and failed to assert his points with the same clarity Vanessa would have. Yet he continued to insist on leading, unwilling to acknowledge that he was too inexperienced to handle such a high-profile case alone. It was here that Vanessa's subtle guidance began to shine through, her advice helping Thomas refine his arguments and strengthen his legal position. Every evening, after hours of reviewing documents, Vanessa would sit at her desk and make meticulous notes for Thomas, suggesting areas where the opposing counsel was vulnerable. She worked on strategies for cross-examinations, drafting questions and anticipating rebuttals. Her hands, steady with experience, shaped the structure of the case even though she was not the one presenting it. Despite her significant contributions, Thomas continued to struggle when it came time to present. His arguments lacked Vanessa's precision, and the jury began to show signs of impatience during his cross-examinations. The media attention surrounding the case only intensified the pressure. Mr. Carlson, once a powerhouse in the corporate world, was now at the center of a scandal that threatened to destroy his business empire. The case was more than just a legal battle. It was a spectacle, played out in front of the public eye. As cameras flashed outside the courthouse, Vanessa could see the toll it took on Thomas. His hands trembled slightly when he took the podium. The weight of the world seemed to press down on him, but Vanessa was resolute in the background, her strategies quietly shaping every turn the case took. Meanwhile, Mr. Carlson's discomfort with the situation became more apparent as the trial proceeded. He observed Vanessa's behind-the-scenes influence, but it didn't stop his biases from lingering in the back of his mind. Still, he could not ignore the cracks that began to form in Thomas's case. It was clear to everyone involved that, despite his best efforts, Thomas lacked the skill to go toe-to-toe with the seasoned attorneys on the other side. His reliance on Vanessa's counsel was undeniable. The more he leaned on her expertise, the more the firm began to realize that, in fact, it was Vanessa who had the most expertise in this particular area of corporate litigation. As the trial neared its climax, the cracks in Thomas's performance widened. There were moments when the opposing counsel, ruthless and well-versed in corporate legal strategy, slipped in underhanded tactics that Thomas was unable to counter. In the courtroom, Thomas's inexperience showed through as he faltered under the pressure of intense cross-examinations. Time and again, the opposition exploited gaps in his arguments, and the defense weakened with every moment. Vanessa, though not physically present in the courtroom, observed every minute from behind the scenes. She had come to respect Thomas's ambition, but it was clear that this trial required more than just good intentions. It needed someone with the depth of experience, the ability to read the room, and the resilience to maintain poise under pressure. Thomas had the drive, but not the experience to back it up. Vanessa knew it was only a matter of time before the case would slip beyond their grasp unless drastic measures were taken. Her suspicions were confirmed one afternoon when a pivotal pretrial hearing took a turn for the worse. Thomas had missed a critical opportunity to challenge key evidence that could have weakened the prosecution's case. The opposing counsel seized on the moment, and it became evident that the trial was veering toward an outcome Vanessa knew would be disastrous. That evening, Vanessa received an urgent call from one of the firm's senior partners, Mark Jacobs. "Vanessa, we need you to step in." Mark's voice was strained, a reflection of the mounting pressure. "The team is doing their best, but we need someone who can turn this around before it's too late. Carlson's entire case is on the line, and frankly, Thomas is struggling to keep up." Vanessa didn't hesitate. "I'll meet with Carlson tomorrow. We can't afford to let this slip away. I'll handle it." The next day, Vanessa entered the conference room where Mr. Carlson awaited. The tension between them was palpable. Carlson, still holding on to his reservations about Vanessa, was a reluctant participant in the conversation. He had doubts, but the gravity of the situation left him with few options. "Mr. Carlson," Vanessa began, her voice steady, "we're at a critical juncture. Thomas isn't able to steer this case to the finish line. I can't guarantee you success if we continue down this path." Carlson's eyes narrowed. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that I take over as lead counsel," Vanessa replied firmly, locking eyes with him. "You've seen the results of my work behind the scenes. You've seen the difference I can make. It's time to act before it's too late." For a moment, Carlson remained silent, as if weighing his options. Vanessa could sense the battle raging inside him, the pride, the hesitation, the realization that his doubts had been misplaced all along. "I know you have reservations about my involvement," Vanessa continued, "but we have one shot at this. If you want to win, you need someone who knows this case inside and out, and that's me." After a long pause, Mr. Carlson sighed and nodded. "Fine. Take the reins, but you better be right about this." Vanessa rose to her feet, her resolve now unwavering. "You'll see. I'll get this done." The courtroom was charged with anticipation as Vanessa Edwards prepared to take center stage in the most pivotal moment of the trial. Mr. Theodore Carlson, once her biggest doubter, had begrudgingly agreed to her leadership after witnessing her masterful handling of a critical pretrial hearing. As she approached the podium, there was a palpable shift in the air, a mixture of respect and expectation from her peers and an anxious curiosity from Mr. Carlson. Vanessa began with her opening arguments, her voice steady and commanding as she laid out the framework of her defense. She articulated the complex legal issues with precision and clarity, skillfully weaving the narrative around the facts of the case. Her confidence was not just in her words, but in her very presence. She owned the courtroom with the ease of a seasoned litigator. As the trial progressed, Vanessa's strategic prowess came to the forefront. Her cross-examinations were a ballet of intellect and tactic, where each question was both a parry and a thrust, designed to unravel the prosecution's arguments. She navigated through the opposition's testimonies with a keen eye, identifying inconsistencies and exploiting gaps with a calm ferocity that gradually dismantled the case against Mr. Carlson. The jurors, initially passive, began to lean in, captivated by Vanessa's performance. Her ability to clarify the most convoluted points and connect with the jury on a human level transformed the dynamics of the trial. With every passing day, the scales of justice seemed to tip increasingly in her favor. Mr. Carlson, seated behind her, watched with a growing mix of awe and discomfort. Each day brought a new revelation about the lawyer he had so easily underestimated. Her dedication, her passion for justice, and her unwavering commitment to his case were undeniable. He found himself grappling with his prior convictions about her abilities and worth, confronted by the reality of his misplaced judgments. The climax of the trial arrived with Vanessa's closing argument, a meticulous summation of weeks of intense legal battle. She stood before the jury, her presence filling the room as she recounted the evidence and testimony, highlighting the strengths of her case while methodically discrediting the prosecution's claims. Her words resonated not just in the minds of the jurors, but echoed in the hearts of everyone present. Vanessa's argument was more than just a plea for a verdict. It was a powerful narrative about fairness, about looking beyond the surface, and about the importance of justice in the corporate world. She concluded with a poignant appeal to the jury's sense of duty and fairness, leaving a lasting impression that lingered in the silent courtroom. As she returned to her seat, there was a subdued applause from her legal team, a breach of courtroom protocol, but a spontaneous tribute to her formidable talents. Even the judge regarded her with a newfound respect, nodding slightly as if in acknowledgement of her prowess. Mr. Carlson, now visibly moved, watched as the jury retired to deliberate. The walls he had built around his prejudices began to crumble, replaced by a reluctant admiration and a deep sense of gratitude. He realized that the outcome of this trial, regardless of its verdict, had been irrevocably shaped by the very person he had doubted. Vanessa, feeling the weight of the moment, allowed herself a brief pause to absorb the gravity of what she had accomplished. Not only had she defended her client with exceptional skill, but she had also shattered the glass ceiling that had been invisibly imposed upon her by others' doubts and biases. As the hours ticked by, the tension in the waiting room grew palpable. Vanessa remained composed, her mind replaying each moment of the trial, analyzing her performance, her decisions, her interactions. She knew she had done everything within her power to secure a favorable outcome. Now it was up to the jury. The atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with anticipation as the jury re-entered, their faces unreadable but purposeful. As they took their seats, a hush fell over the room, every eye fixed on the foreperson who stood, holding the verdict that would seal the fate of Mr. Theodore Carlson. Vanessa Edwards, standing poised and confident, allowed herself a brief moment to steady her breath, her gaze steady on the jury box. "We find the defendant," the foreperson paused momentarily, "not guilty on all counts." A wave of relief and subdued cheers erupted from Vanessa's side of the courtroom. Her legal team exchanged embraces and congratulatory pats, their expressions a mixture of joy and disbelief at the outcome they had barely dared hope for. Vanessa remained composed, her eyes meeting Mr. Carlson's across the room. The look on his face was one of profound relief mingled with something deeper, a dawning realization of the prejudices he had harbored and the near-disastrous consequences of those unfounded biases. As the courtroom cleared, Mr. Carlson approached Vanessa, his earlier haughtiness replaced by a humbler demeanor. "Ms. Edwards, I owe you more than I can express," he began, his voice unsteady. "Not just for winning this case, but for enduring my doubts with such dignity. I was wrong about you, and I am sorry." Vanessa listened, her expression softening. "Thank you, Mr. Carlson. It's important for both of us that we learn from this experience. I hope this will be a turning point for you as much as it has been a reaffirmation for me." The impact of Vanessa's victory resonated far beyond the walls of the courtroom. Back at Harrison and Tate, she was met with applause and admiration from her colleagues. Her inbox filled with messages from peers across the legal community, lauding her strategy and resilience. News articles picked up the story, highlighting not just the legal victory, but the narrative of a Black woman who had triumphed over systemic doubts and biases to deliver justice. In the following weeks, Vanessa was invited to speak at legal forums and universities, her case study becoming a subject of discussion for its implications on corporate law and diversity in legal practice. Her story inspired a broader dialogue about the need for inclusivity in traditionally homogeneous professional settings. Meanwhile, Mr. Carlson found himself reflecting deeply on his own beliefs and actions. The trial, and more so Vanessa's unwavering professionalism, had exposed him to his own shortcomings. Motivated by his recent epiphany, he began engaging with diversity training programs. He reached out to Vanessa to assist in developing an initiative aimed at promoting diversity and inclusivity within his company, determined to rectify the cultural deficiencies within his own corporate environment. Vanessa's firm, buoyed by the high-profile win and the positive publicity, experienced an influx of new clients eager to engage with the attorney who had become synonymous with diligence and integrity. The firm's partners, recognizing Vanessa's role not just in winning a difficult case but in enhancing the firm's reputation, offered her a position on the board, a move that solidified her status as a key figure in the legal landscape. As the dust settled, Vanessa took a moment to reflect on her journey. From the initial doubts to the overwhelming support, her path had been a testament to the power of perseverance and principle. She knew that her victory was not just personal, but a beacon for others who had faced similar trials in their professional lives. As Vanessa Edwards sat in her well-appointed office overlooking the Chicago skyline, she reflected on the whirlwind of events that had reshaped her career and self-perception. The successful conclusion of the high-profile case had not only affirmed her legal prowess, but also strengthened her resolve to challenge the systemic prejudices still rampant in her profession. She felt a deep sense of validation, knowing that her dedication had dismantled barriers not just for herself, but for others who would follow. In the weeks following the trial, Vanessa's reputation as a formidable litigator in high-stakes corporate law had grown exponentially. Her phone rang continuously with offers from potential clients and invitations to speak at legal conferences and universities. These clients did not just seek Vanessa for her legal expertise. They were drawn by her courage and integrity, qualities that had been highlighted by her recent case. They wanted someone who was not only excellent in her field, but also exemplary in her ethical standards. Vanessa embraced this new role with gusto, realizing that she had a unique platform to advocate for change. At Harrison & Tate, she initiated a mentorship program designed to nurture young attorneys from diverse backgrounds. The program focused on equipping them with the skills needed to excel in a competitive field, while also fostering an environment that valued diversity and inclusiveness. Her mentoring sessions, often filled with anecdotes from her own experiences, emphasized resilience and the importance of staying true to one's principles in the face of adversity. Meanwhile, Mr. Theodore Carlson had undergone a profound transformation. The trial in Vanessa's unwavering professionalism had forced him to confront his biases and reconsider his views on leadership and success. Motivated by his newfound respect for diversity and inclusivity, he became an active participant in the law firm's diversity initiatives. His company began to sponsor events and scholarships aimed at promoting inclusivity in the legal field, and he often credited Vanessa for sparking this change in his approach to business and leadership. The story concludes at a gala organized by Harrison & Tate to celebrate its diversity efforts, where Vanessa was the guest of honor. As she addressed the gathering, her words resonated with the power of change and the impact of persistence. Mr. Carlson, now one of her staunchest supporters, applauded from the front row, a testament to the transformative power of understanding and respect. Vanessa's journey had come full circle, not just triumphing over legal battles but also winning hearts and minds along the way. Her legacy, she hoped, would inspire not just a generation of lawyers, but a movement towards a more equitable and just society.